deconstruct my identity, I had to first know where my privilege stemmed from and how my whiteness has influenced my life and where I've grown up. I had to examine that where I grew up and my advantages were really just blessings that I could use to benefit others. And I quickly realized how prevalent racism still is today.
She's a good girl, loves her mama, loves Jesus, in America too.
I grew up in a predominantly white neighborhood and I went to a predominantly white school, but there was no shortage of racism in those places. I grew up the daughter of a basketball coach who adopted many other sons who weren't technically my brothers, but who were just the same as every other boy in my family. I was fortunate enough to grow up in a household where racism wasn't an option and where we didn't see people as different than us just because of skin color or where they grew up. What's our school like?
Our school went to a private school. It was very white. I'd say it was about 5% something other than white, whether it was African American, Asian, Hispanic, but there was only about 5% that weren't white, and some of those were athletes. There were two kids in particular that lived with us that were African American basketball players. They came from families that weren't quite like we grew up, weren't very wealthy, probably didn't have food every meal, probably didn't have that many clothes, probably wearing the same thing almost every single day without washing it. So they got to end up living with us. I think it was a great experience for them. To experience that and have someone love them and care about them probably more than they've ever experienced. And likewise for us and our family, it was probably more of a gift or a blessing to us than it was to them. I think we did a pretty good job of making them, you know, they were more part of the family. I think if they weren't part of the family, they might have felt different. But I think, and maybe they did at the beginning, but over time, the more you loved them, the more you took care of them, the more you just made them part of the family, the more welcome and normal they felt. Most of the kids, the minority kids, the African Americans, are athletes that I was associated with. So they probably came from some pretty tough spots throughout the country, whether it was the football players or the basketball players. Probably didn't quite grow up like the people who weren't on scholarship at Baylor University. It's not the cheapest place to go. So, you know, and I got to hang out with the athletes quite a bit, and got to see some of the spots where they were from, some of their hometowns, which were a maybe a little bit of a culture shock even to me.
You look good in the palm of my hands. Watch the light round your feet just dance. Feel sweat pressed against my skin. Girl, you're fire.
Never felt weird about it. I loved it. I'm still friends with a lot of them today. Talk to a lot of them still. I just don't think that I judge anyone. I don't feel like I've seen kids from all walks of life, whether it's they're coming from the slums, or they're coming from the, hood or the ghetto or whatever you want to call it, or the kids that are growing up in the 50,000 square foot mansion that cost them, their parents $20 million. So I don't think I judge anyone by looks or by what they look like, or what color their skin is, or what they're wearing, or what they smell like, or where they came from, or what city they're from. It just doesn't matter to me. Like, you are who you are, and I'm going to look past all that stuff and figure out who you really are and who you really want to be. And there's no judgment on my end. And I think that, kind of goes back to where I got to see kids start from, some of the athletes from nothing. And those kids really wanted to be something. And you might have looked at them when they were 8 years old and been like, why am I going to talk to that kid? And, you got kids that probably did that, and look at them now who are playing in the NBA and being like, man, I wish I would have been friends with that kid. So there's just I think it's a good learning lesson for all. Don't judge anyone by their skin color, by their clothes, by where they came from, anything like that. You got to look past that. Be friends to everyone, love everyone, and be kind to everyone. So
it's like whatever I say. Travel through.
Like Bo said, we grew up in a really white neighborhood in Atlanta where we should have been a minority, but we were a majority. And we went to a private school for our whole lives, and from private school K through 12 all the way to Baylor, we were always a majority. And we always ended up hanging out with the athletes, the African Americans in our schools, who maybe made up like 1 or 2% of the whole student body. And we always just found ourselves in those situations. And like he said, neither of us really felt like we didn't belong. We always felt really welcomed, and they always felt really welcomed with us. And so it was really fun.
Have you my mind like double time? I'm starting to need you. I can't seem to find another line. I only repeat you. You're not.
No, not really. They've always been really inclusive and really like welcoming, and we've never, being in public with them, sometimes people would look at us funny just because we would be the one token white person. But every time, we just felt really comfortable.
I hear your heartbeat to the beat of the drums. Oh, what a shame that you came here with someone. So while you're here,
I think just by taking every emotion that I felt when reading them, and the anger and the sadness and the frustration, and remembering that when in the situations where people are being racist or doing even colorblind racism, calling people out on the things that they don't realize. So just try that way.
I got a bad feeling about this. I got a bad feeling about this. You're coming over, but it never was enough. I thought of you and my worst brings out the best in. I got a bad feeling about this. I got a bad feeling about.
It was kind of cool. For a little while, they kind of called you, you could tell that they were like, oh, who's this new white female teacher in our classroom? But over the course of the semester, just by really bonding with the students and just getting to know them and their backgrounds and kind of finding a way to relate to them, made it really beneficial for me. I think I probably learned more from them than that they did from me. So.
Then they love you again. Hate you, then they love you, then they hate you again. Lord.